Insert in kind. 45. The field beneath the function. Before entering, what follows is not an argument, nor a sermon, nor an anthem for self-improvement. It does not intend to persuade you of anything, nor to relieve you with agreement. It is a corridor. If you choose to walk it deliberately. It may feel, at first, like standing in a room where the air is thinner than you prefer. Not because anything is being taken from you, but because something you have long carried begins to lose its density. There will be no instructions about what to discard, no pronouncements about what you have been doing wrong, no dramatic unmasking. Instead, you may notice subtle rearrangements. This is not a text to skim. It will not reward speed. It will not compete for your attention. It assumes you possess one of the rarest faculties available: sustained interior regard. If at any moment you feel a quiet resistance, an almost imperceptible tightening, do not attempt to correct it. Simply observe that it occurs. Nothing here demands belief. It only invites lucidity. From early on, you were measured, not maliciously, not always harshly, simply measured. You were praised for aptitude, for quickness, for compliance, for excellence, for endurance, or perhaps you were reprimanded for their absence. In either case, a subtle equation began forming. To do well is to be well. To fail is to diminish. To excel is to matter. It is an efficient system. It organizes behavior. It cultivates discipline. It builds civilizations. It also builds an interior tribunal. Gradually, you may have come to believe that your capacities were not expressions of you, but validations of you. That what you produce is synonymous with what you are. That to cease producing would be to fade. Notice how quietly this assumption operates. When you introduce yourself, what do you offer? A list of functions, a constellation of competencies, a resume disguised as biography. Rarely does one say, "I am." More often, "I do." And so the doing becomes devotional. Every skill, every triumph, every acquisition is laid upon an invisible altar as evidence of worth. Yet, consider, the hand can write without being the author of existence. The voice can persuade without being the source of breath. The mind can calculate without being the ground of awareness. What you can do is astonishing. It is not identical to what you are. Before you speak, there is a pause. Before you move, there is a prelude. Before any demonstration of talent, before any articulation of opinion, there is an interval so subtle that it is often unnoticed. In that interval, Nothing has been proven. No identity has been asserted. No capacity has been displayed. And yet, you are undeniably present. The interval does not depend on applause. It does not fluctuate with outcome. It does not contract when misunderstood. It simply abides. If you rest there, even momentarily, you may sense a peculiar neutrality, not indifference, rather an unornamented sufficiency. This sufficiency does not require evidence. It precedes evidence. There is a habit, nearly universal, of rehearsing oneself internally, a constant micro-adjustment to imagined observation. Even in solitude, one may feel faintly watched, by memory, by anticipation, by the hypothetical gaze of others. Consider how frequently you narrate your own experiences. This was impressive. That was embarrassing. I handled that well. I should have been better. The narration is swift. It arranges events into a cohesive persona. It curates continuity. Yet, if you pause the narration, if you allow an event to remain uncommented upon, you will notice something startling. Life continues. Breath continues. Sensation continues without commentary. There is an intelligence prior to description, an immediacy that requires no annotation. The commentary is useful. It coordinates social reality. It refines strategy. It is not the essence of you. Some mistake productivity for proof. They assume that unless they are generating, achieving, optimizing, or transcending, they are at risk of invisibility. I must demonstrate. I must justify. I must show. This compulsion can masquerade as virtue. It can appear as dedication, as ambition, as noble aspiration. But beneath it, often lies a subtler premise. If I cease to perform, I may not deserve to remain. What a precarious foundation. Observe the trees. They do not justify their existence through fruit. Fruit appears because it is natural for them to bear it, not because they must prove arboreal legitimacy. Observe the ocean. It does not justify its tides. They occur as consequence of law, not as evidence of worth. Your capacities are tidal. They ebb and surge. They sharpen and soften. They evolve. That they fluctuate does not imperil what you are. You are not the sum of your competencies. You are the field in which they arise. There is within you a locus that does not compete. It does not compare trajectories. It does not catalog accomplishments. It does not fear obsolescence. It simply observes. When insulted, it does not contract. When praised, it does not inflate. When ignored, it does not vanish. This locus is often obscured by the urgency of adaptation, by the need to respond quickly, to secure position, to maintain coherence in the eyes of others. Yet, it remains. If you were to stop defending your image for a single day, not abandoning responsibility, not renouncing excellence, but ceasing the internal argument about who you must appear to be, you might discover an unanticipated spaciousness. The throne was never outside you. It was never dependent on the recognition of others. It is the seat of simple presence. A peculiar exhaustion arises when display outpaces being, when the image you maintain requires more vigilance than the life you inhabit. You may notice this fatigue as irritability, as restlessness, as the vague suspicion that something essential has been outsourced. What has been outsourced is not your morality, nor your intelligence, nor your ambition. It is your immediacy. Display lives in anticipation. Being lives in contact. Display is oriented toward reception. Being is oriented toward participation. When participation resumes, when you feel the texture of your own breath without converting it into narrative, you re-enter a domain that cannot be evaluated. Evaluation belongs to display. Participation belongs to life. There is a way of acting that is precise, meticulous, even fierce, yet unburdened. It does not rely on the result to confirm identity. It acts because action is appropriate. It speaks because speech is true. It creates because creation is natural. If the outcome is celebrated, it remains steady. If the outcome is dismissed, it remains steady. This steadiness is often misunderstood as passivity. It is not. It is alignment. Alignment does not waver with applause. It is luminous because it is unhooked. You may have encountered moments, fleeting, almost embarrassing in their simplicity, where the need to be someone dissolved. Perhaps while watching light spill across a wall, perhaps while listening to rain, perhaps while holding silence with another person without striving to impress. In those moments, nothing was missing. No credential was required. No explanation was necessary. There was only participation. That participation is closer to your nature than any resume. It does not negate your skills. It contextualizes them. Skills become expressions, not evidence. Talents become offerings, not arguments. As this recognition deepens, not dramatically, but quietly, you may find that certain interior tensions soften. The urgency to respond immediately may loosen. The reflex to defend may hesitate. The compulsion to prove may seem faintly antiquated. You will still act. You will still decide. You will still refine your craft. But the subterranean anxiety that once animated these actions may begin to thin. This thinning is not loss. It is relief. The light does not invade. It reveals that the room was never as cramped as you imagined. There is something in you that has never been praised and never been insulted, never improved and never diminished. It was present before your first success. It will remain when your last accolade fades. It does not need to be fortified. It does not need to be announced. It is not a concept. It is not a role. It is not a skill. It is the simple fact of being. If you rest there, even briefly, you will understand why proving becomes unnecessary. From that vantage, you may still build, write, speak, heal, invent, lead, but you will no longer confuse the instrument with the source. What you can do will remain extraordinary, but it will no longer be the measure of your worth. It will be what it always was, a movement within something far vaster. And that vastness, quiet, unadorned, unthreatened, does not need to win. It only needs to be recognized. Sit with that recognition. Let it permeate the subtle corridors of your thought. Do not grasp it. Do not brand it. Allow it. In that allowing, something rearranges. Not violently, not spectacularly, simply enough. And in that sufficiency, light enters without announcement. Not to destroy what you have built, but to remind you that you were never confined to it.